Hi there. My name is Abil Beckford, and I'm the host of the One Problem podcast. We know that there are tons of problems in the world. We will not focus on all of them. Why get overwhelmed? We're going to tackle the problems one at a time. As usually is the case, my guests are people who I've had some prior relationship with, and that is indeed the case with my guest today. I've known her for more than 10 years, actually. But the interesting thing is that we've never met. I met her virtually more than 10 years ago now. So today we're having Dr. Pauline Crawford. She is a conversation game changer, and she's very good at developing programs. She's also an author, and she is the G100 Global Chair. Now, over to you, Pauline.
Thank you, Avril. It's wonderful to be here. So what is one amazing problem that I see in the world? And I think it has to be how women and men listen to each other. There could be lots of other things, how they behave with each other, etc. But I do wonder how we listen to each other, because so often whatever we say is misinterpreted, misunderstood. And we come away from a conversation thinking, were they really listening to me? And when it's very senior, when it's very top level, this can be critical, because I'm at the table, I'm saying something, and somebody's maybe nodding, but I'm thinking they're not actually listening to me. So they're not listening to me and they're not hearing what I'm saying. So I think that's the biggest problem. So how do we solve that? I think the key is that we need to know ourselves, as opposed to judging the other person's listening ability. Because we listen in different ways. So maybe asking for a summary or a confirmation. May I just check that we're talking about the same thing? We don't say, oh, I don't think you're listening, because that would be critical. But actually to say, because this is a very important meeting, I'd like to be clear that we're on the same page. That's a classic thing. But if we don't actually listen, we don't hear. And when we don't hear, we make assumptions. And I think there's a lot of assumptions being made at the moment about how we should go into our now future economic crisis. And if we don't listen to each other and clarify and summarize back, we're not going to make the right decisions about how we co-create. So this is particularly relevant for men and women, although it's also relevant for men to listen to other men and women to listen to other women. We get so caught up in the, oh, well, I think I said the right thing. They didn't hear me, so it must be their fault. Take responsibility for your ability to listen. Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense. It's interesting you're saying that, because I studied computer science years and years ago. I didn't work in the field, but I studied it. And one of the things we were taught, and it still stays with me decades later, is that, the client talks to you and they say what it is their need. And it's your responsibility to say something to the effect, this is what I heard you say.
Yeah.
So you reinterpret what the person say. And if you didn't hear correctly, they can easily, correct you.
Yes.
So this is exactly what you're saying.
Absolutely, because we need to be progressive in today's world. We need to be acting on issues that are very important. But if we get the route wrong, if we go through the wrong doorway, we carry on making wrong mistakes as opposed to clarifying and listening. And I think it's a very interesting practice, active listening, you know, especially just listening to nature, listening to how much sound is around you, not only the chatter of a meeting or the non-chatter of the meeting. So that I think it's really, really important.
This is a very important topic. And I think it's needed now, because a lot of times, people say they're listening, but they're not hearing what you're saying. And what they're also doing, they're thinking about how to rebut what you're saying. So they're actually not listening. They're crafting their reply in their head. So yeah, active listening is important.
And I think the other thing is, just briefly, is that a lot of people make a decision before they even get into the conversation that this is the direction I want it to go. So I work with leaders about how men and women listen to each other differently. And I often find men saying to me, "Oh, I really don't understand what the women were talking about. But anyway, I just carried on doing what I was going to do." And often the women are saying, "He doesn't listen to me because, I've got so many good ideas, but they're not listening." But she's so carried up in her ideas, she hasn't taken into account that he needs it in a certain way. He maybe needs bullet points or the right kind of questions. Now, we don't know what those are until we listen, clarify, and then become accountable for who we are.
Thank you so much.